Tonight we're focusing in on Zoom with Galaxy AI on the new Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. Ah, a baby tiger. Check out his claws as he prepares to pounce on that frog. Close one, but not as close as this Zoom. We can literally count the whiskers and... Oh look, Mum's here. Good thing I'm nowhere nearby. Go wild with Galaxy AI on the new S24 Ultra and zoom in on the epic day or night.
Get yours now at Samsung.com.
Today on CityCast Madison. It's the Friday News Roundup. This week, I'm joined by CityCast Madison's Haley Sperling and Molly Stentz. Wisconsin elected officials joined the campaign to vote uninstructed for the 2024 presidential primary. Amazon drivers in Wisconsin can now get unemployment after a state Supreme Court ruling. And a Dane County jury finds police not guilty after shooting at a Madisonian, Quadrin Wilson. It's Friday, March 29th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Welcome to the Friday News Roundup. We're days away from the spring primary, and there's quite the commotion in what seemed just a month ago to be a pretty straightforward presidential primary. We're going to get into that and more. Joining me today is the leader of this here podcast, Molly Stentz. Howdy.
Heyo.
And our newsletter editor, Haley Sperling. What's good?
Hello.
So before we get into the roundup, y'all, this is our last day of our membership campaign. I'm almost feeling I wanted to keep going. It's so fun.
Never stop. Membership is a forever thing. It's beautiful. This has been such a fun first campaign for us.
And we've seen tons of you guys come in, and including the mayor of the city. I mean, come on.
Shout out to Miss Satya. Thank you for supporting us, and thank you for leading our little town.
And here's the deal. We'll keep cranking out the journalism each and every day if you keep supporting what we do. Seems like fair trade.
Yes. We'll keep connecting you to your neighbors and hearing the stories of people who plow our streets, to people who are, fighting for the kids on the school board, to the people who are cooking up your favorite Thai dishes. We're having a good time.
I love it. And like you guys said, we have so many more stories to tell. And with your help, you can help us tell these stories. Bianca, where can people go to support us?
Yes, you can become a member by visiting our website, madison.citycast.fm. There's a big old banner. You'll see it. Sign up to be a member. Join us. Become a friend. Become a bestie.
And thank you to all of you who have joined us so far. We appreciate you. We see you.
And to all of y'all who have been members. We are rolling deep, and we don't take that lightly. So thank you. And back to the roundup. And we're going to start with the Democratic primary. We talked about the uninstructed vote movement last Friday on the Roundup, that it may play a factor in the spring Democratic primary. And then there is this new wave of energy that emerged right after we had our conversation, when this past Sunday, local state representative Francesca Hong drafted an endorsement letter that went out for that uninstructed vote with 20 elected officials on the letter. So there is a group called Listen to Wisconsin. It's an initiative calling for Wisconsinites to vote uninstructed in the Democratic primary. Their quote is to tell Biden, "Count me out of genocide." And Listen to Wisconsin has a goal of getting 20,000 uninstructed votes, or about 15% of the projected vote in our next Tuesday's primary. And that's to protest President Joe Biden's handling of what's going on in Gaza in the Israel-Hamas war. In 2020, Biden won Wisconsin by a little over 20,000 votes. So, y'all, what do you think? It feels like Wisconsin, that we are feeling ourselves. Like, it's clear that the administration cares about our state. They've been here probably at least 5 times. And now people are trying to use that and send a message.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's very clear that the Biden administration is putting a lot of weight in Wisconsin. Like you mentioned, Bianca, like they've been here multiple times. They're beefing up their field office out here. But will they listen to what these voters have to say? You know, I think people are realizing that actions speak louder than words, and that when it comes to the Biden administration, like, they have a record that the voters are looking at these days, especially when it comes to the war in the Middle East. This is something that has the entire world's attention and something that we should not look away from. And, you know, voting in an uninstructed vote, it's a statement for sure. And like, if that's what else are elections for if not to make a statement? You know, it's not like this is actually really going to impact the presidential race, I don't think, in any way, because, you know, this is just a primary where he's pretty much the only one out there. But yeah, this is a time to let the people in power know how you feel. I think it's a very interesting campaign, and I'm very curious to see the numbers that this campaign turns out.
Right, because I think it's not the choice between, okay, which candidate will Democrats vote for? It's, will Democrats show up to vote at all?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's always the question. It's not like who's the best candidate. It's like, is it worth voting? That's like the question of our time with our political elections. I mean, kind of sadly in my mind, but that always is the question, like voters versus non-voters. I mean, in some elections, non-voters are actually the biggest block. When you look at it, people who are like, I'm out of this whole scene.
Absolutely. And politicians know that, and they're often trying to target those people to come out. And so this is a really interesting campaign. The folks that are supporting this are saying that this is not a vote for Trump. It is a protest vote. It is a vote for something to send a message, knowing that President Biden has essentially, you know, locked this nomination. I do want to read a comment that we got in from a listener from last week when we talked about this. They said, the Uninstructed campaign is not calling for the Dems to drop Biden, which is what Bianca said. This is a really, really important distinction. The call is for the immediate, permanent ceasefire and an end to U.S. military aid to Israel. Thank you so much for writing that into us. And they make a really, really good point. So what I said last Friday was about, you know, talking about left-leaning voters, and there's been this movement for Democratic voters, and I did say to drop Biden. Drop's probably the wrong word. It's actually a hold. It's about holding him to account. I will say that I have heard from plenty of people before I saw this kind of official movement who are really disillusioned by the administration's course in the Middle East, and were like, I'm not going to vote for him. But really, we're talking about this spring Democratic presidential primary. And the movement here, there is a official campaign for voting uninstructed to do actually the opposite, to energize folks to come in and vote. Like you said, Ma, like getting people who are just going to sit out. The official campaign for voting uninstructed that we're seeing is different. And in fact, they're hoping to like reinvigorate the voting electorate from what I saw. And, you know, to tap into the fact that the majority of Americans do support a ceasefire. So that administration's choices have negatively impacted down ticket Democrats. That's something to say. When we see 20 elected officials signing a letter against the president, that's not that common. You know, we don't see that so often. So there's pretty big pressure to do something like this. So it's really fascinating. And it seems like the Democrats, you know, at least the Democrats that are standing up for this, they're trying to strengthen the Democratic brand, that the party is a party that stands for something. So come out to Election Day.
Is Chicago going to be wild this summer? That is my question. I just watched Shirley last night, the new movie about Shirley Chisholm, and was reminded about the craziness of the 1972 Democratic political convention and all of the shenanigans and horse trading and brokering that went on in that campaign. And we see where that went. So very interesting. It's on my mind.
And that's fair enough. Yeah. So, you know, this is just the beginning, this primary on Tuesday. And while we're here, I want to really quick shout out to our municipal city clerk's office who do the work for these elections. They are out here organizing the polling places, poll workers, voter outreach and education, all early voting and absentee voting. Man, y'all are seriously holding it down. You're holding it down. You're a core wing of our democracy. And I just wanted to make sure that we said that.
And they're hiring. I mean, you too could be a poll worker. I have done it. It's kind of fun, actually. You could do it.
All right, y'all. Before we dive into any more news, let's take a quick break. All right, science heads, are you curious about the unknown? Gear up, because it's time for the 2024 UW-Madison Science Expeditions Campus Open House. From April 5th through 7th, go explore the campus-wide extravaganza across 6 campus locations at one of the best research universities in the world. You'll interact with UW researchers, visit science venues, see science spectacular shows, and get hands-on at exploration stations set up from dozens of UW research groups. From the far reaches of our galaxy with astronomy to zoology examining microbes, UW-Madison Science Expeditions has it all. And all events are free and open to the public. So go get your wonder on. Go check out a complete schedule of events at science.wisc.edu. Attorney Z. Usman with Usman Law in Madison has helped thousands of folks fight back against abusive debt collectors. And he wants to help you too. The average interest rate on credit cards today is 25%. So, for example, if you charge $10,000, you're really gonna owe a lot more than that in the end. If you only make minimum payments each month, you're gonna be paying that off for longer than you realize. You'll end up paying more in interest than you borrowed to begin with. And nobody's got time for that. But there's help. Attorney Usman can help you figure out how long it'll take to pay off your debts. Then he can help you find ways to pay them off sooner and for less. To learn the easiest way to pay things off, visit madtownlawyer.com to schedule a free call with Attorney Usman, the finance fixer.
So, hey, real talk. Have y'all done your taxes yet?
I don't want to talk about that.
I played the fifth.
Okay. So I want to talk about taxes, but please don't leave. Please stay with me.
Bye.
I want to talk about unemployment, which I feel like we have not been talking about enough lately. So who pays unemployment, right? Business owners, employers, many of them small. They pay into our state's unemployment fund, which any of us can draw upon if we get thrown out of work, which, okay, fair. You might be saying unemployment in this job market. Really? Sure. But we were all here for the pandemic. We remember how important that unemployment fund was. More than 300,000 of us filed claims in March and April of 2020 when people got thrown out of work due to unprecedented economic shift and global pandemic.
Yeah, I was one of them. We love unemployment. Shout out to the system.
So I think that we were all pretty much reminded of its importance. Yeah, it had some probs. We had some major probs, but I think we can all agree we were glad it was there. So, well, guess who it turns out wasn't paying into our dear unemployment fund in the state of Wisconsin? What's that you say? A small, struggling company who could barely make ends meet? Maybe some brand new business owners who didn't know the rules? No, it was Amazon.
Oh, I'm shocked.
Boo.
Wah, wah, wah. So the Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled this week that indeed some drivers who work for Amazon are employees. And what that means is that the company should be paying unemployment for them, which it has not been doing for years, to the tune of $200,000.
Amazing. And which is nothing to Amazon, which is absolutely that's a mistake. That's a rounding error to them.
Yeah, that sounds like a little bit of money.
Yeah.
But for here locally in the state.
So this particularly has to do with Amazon workers who work using the Flex app. So basically, Amazon Logistics, which is one of their subsidiaries, got audited by the State Workforce Development, the agency that runs unemployment. And, after some people tried to use it and got denied, and we're like, oops, you don't get unemployment because you're not an actual employee. And they were like, but what? But I work all the time for this company doing the job. Why?
Yeah, well, who was that lifting all those boxes? Guess it wasn't me.
So Amazon Logistics got audited by the state, and they were like, well, See, these workers are gig workers, okay, because they have the freedom to select the blocks of time in which they can deliver the packages, right? Like they can choose the terms of their employment, so to speak. So therefore, we're going to call them independent contractors, which means like they're on the hook for all their own taxes.
That's insane.
Yeah, the state was like, well, about that. So they can't really negotiate the length of the block that they're servicing, the amount of the fees that they're getting paid to deliver the actual geographic area that they're delivering to. Basically, they can't negotiate any of their terms, which you might expect if they were an actual contractor. If you were actually going to try to hire a contractor to, you know, build a house or something, you might negotiate about things that you would want and things that they could do. That is not the case with these Amazon workers. If you're an Amazon driver, this is big news. It means you won't automatically get cut out of unemployment benefits should you need them. And if you don't work for Amazon or in the gig economy, I would suggest there'd be other reasons why you might care because, as it turns out, our state's unemployment fund isn't fully solvent to the levels recommended by the feds. Yeah, because, you know, do bad things happen? Do bad things happen to us? They would never happen to us here in the state of Wisconsin. There could never be any economic volatility ahead.
Never.
Oh, dear. Ah! Well, it also just like, I feel totally complicit. Well, first of all, my brother's was an Amazon delivery driver not too long ago. And, you know, I take Ubers. You know, I really like helping our local economy by getting all the easy services, you know? I feel totally complicit when people are bringing any, you know, Amazon packages or anything like that. And I heard from an Uber driver who also did Amazon, and it's just like the precarity they were living in. And it was harrowing, you know, and because their manager, of course, everyone's got stories about work, but they really were treated like they didn't matter. And so they just, all of the corners that were being cut, it's just like, you know, injustice anywhere is injustice for everyone. But I'm serious. It's really disturbing. So this is huge. This warms my heart that this is happening because it's so frustrating to see this huge company come in and be able to take the biggest, you know, leeway and how they treat their employees. Like, they should be the best. They have the most resources. They should treat their employees the best.
Yeah. I think Wisconsin has been swindled by too many big tech companies in the past. We don't need to talk about Foxconn, but we can't not talk about Foxconn. But yeah, I mean, I think it's fine that Amazon pays their dues. It's a multi-billion-dollar company and they can handle it. Also, like, yeah, it's kind of crazy when you talk about, like, are these gig workers, are these contract workers? Like, it literally just sounds like these workers were able to set their own hours, which is like, okay, cool. Like, even in the restaurant service industry, like, I could say, like, I'm available this day, and this day. Like, does that make me a gig worker? Like, no, you know, that's not how that works. So
don't give them any ideas, Haley.
No, yeah, exactly. But anyways, this is a win, and we're going to take it as a win. And we love to see it. Because so often we see these big companies come in with their endless legal funds and they get to say, we're right and you're wrong. And courts are like, sure. But we love to see our Supreme Court doing something good and doing something good that's going to impact people in the state. We love it.
Speaking of courts and court action this week, woof.
Oh, yeah, woof. We got a bit of a heavy one here. So this week, the state police officer who was charged with reckless endangerment for shooting Quadrin Wilson in 2022 was cleared of all charges. So if y'all don't remember, this was a pretty high profile case that happened back in February 2022. Wilson was shot multiple times in the back during his arrest on Madison's Far East Side. So the way that Wilson was arrested and the way that the subsequent shooting went down sparked a big backlash and just kind of like outcry from the community because it made people very scared. And also, anytime the police shoot someone, it's a big deal, and we shouldn't treat it as if it's not a big deal because this isn't normal and this is a big deal. So to put it into more context, like I said, this happened back in February 2022. Wilson was set to be arrested for various drug charges, and 21 law enforcement agents from local, state, and federal agencies assisted in his arrest. And essentially what they did is they boxed in Wilson's car at an intersection, but DCI officer, the one who is on trial, Mark Wagner, said that he thought Wilson had a gun during the attempted arrest and fired his weapon when he thought he had heard a gunshot. Wagner's action here prompted another officer to shoot, and that officer's fragments from his bullets ended up hitting Wilson in the process, and he was shot multiple times in the back. Thankfully, he survived the incident, but an investigation ensued and ultimately concluded that Wilson was unarmed at the time of this arrest. Wilson, again, according to the Cap Times, his arrest was part of a cocaine and fentanyl delivery investigation, and the police were serving a Department of Corrections warrant. But in the aftermath, the Dane County District Attorney Ishmael Ozan actually charged Wagner, the first cop who shot, with second-degree recklessly endangering safety by use of a dangerous weapon. So this was kind of a big deal in general because it's not often that we see prosecutors going after law enforcement agents. Famously, it hasn't happened in the past. You know, we've had many conversations about Tony Robinson. We don't need to go deep into that again, but, you know, the police officer who shot and killed that poor teenager is still on the force today. Anywho, so the Dane County District Attorney charged Wagner with second-degree reckless endangerment, essentially, which means that the prosecution had to prove that Wagner's actions by shooting at Wilson recklessly endangered the safety of others in the process. And essentially, the jury decided no, that was not the case. And also to note, the other cop who shot at Wilson and who actually hit him wasn't charged. He was pretty much let off in return for his cooperation in the investigation. So there's a lot of fallout from this situation. This is a very scary situation. Wilson testified at this trial. He owned up to his crimes, but really what shook him, and you could see it happening, their courtroom videos, he teared up in court when talking about the shooting. And there's really no denying that this is a very, very scary situation, and that he's very thankful to be alive. And there's truly, I think it just shows there's always danger when guns are involved. And this was a very public environment. Like I said, this happened on a street intersection, which is kind of crazy.
I remember that day. I remember coming, and it was just the massive show of force in all of the cars and all, they shut down traffic. And it was just holy cats, who is among us? What just went down? This, one could assume this was some huge high profile case, some really wanted person. And then it turned into this, and it was okay.
Yeah, I was reading one part of the case where I guess Wilson had gotten caught in an undercover sting, someone a cop bought drugs from him, but it wasn't drugs. It ended up being a pear, which I was what?
Did not understand that.
Whatever, do your own crimes. I just think that's kind of funny. But okay, this is the crazy criminal that it's taking 21 law enforcement officers and multiple weapons and shootings go after him, this man. It's just it's kind of a lot. It's kind of a lot.
And am I wrong in thinking basically the officer who shot after Wagner, he shot into the car and it hit the seat and fragments of the bullets went into Wilson's back. So why are you shooting into a car? I don't know. The idea that they felt Wilson turned his body and he squared up to them, and that was oh, he has a gun. There was no gun.
No.
So just the idea he moved his body a certain way. I don't know. It was all of these teeny little details that make up whatever, led the jury to decide that a non-guilty verdict. But I guess I was heartened to see, DA Ozan like arguing that one of those details was that Wilson was trying to drive his car away, like was trying to get out of this space, and his tires were spinning, and they made this big scene. But Ozan was like arguing that the car was paused, that the car was stopped, and that's when shots were fired in. So it was like it's all of these considerations. But this is kind of historic that the police officers are at least being held to account, even though the jury ultimately decided not guilty for shooting into a car with a man that was unarmed.
And apparently, according to the attorney, was on an ankle bracelet. And so the idea of like the need to do this pursuit. I mean, we saw what happened in Monona recently with a high-speed chase and someone ended up dead, So that was interesting. There's going to be a civil suit. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I think the impact of this is very big. Like we mentioned, I think it's big that the DA went after these cops, but also, well, just the one, I guess. But the way that Wagner was received after the verdict came out kind of rubbed me in a very... It just, as us teens say, it gave me the ick. Essentially, according to the State Journal, pretty much after Wagner left the courtroom with his attorneys, he was met with applause and cheers that had broken out outside of the corridor, outside of the courtroom, where his supporters, including a big group of DCI agents, lined both sides and applauded him as they passed through. So, like, I understand like being happy about a verdict, but also like this situation, it does not seem warranted of that sort of response. And also I think is simply only going to end up furthering that divide between law enforcement and the people that they are supposed to protect and serve, because that's what we're paying you for. But in the end, I think this isn't the last that we've heard of this. Like Molly said, who knows, there could be a civil suit brewing, and we'll see how that unfolds as the future comes.
Yeah. That's a really, really, really tough story. I'm glad that we covered it. And I'm glad all of the stories we covered this week, as normal, very fruitful. I appreciate you guys so much here on the Friday News Roundup. Thank you for joining me, Haley Sperling. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Molly Stentz.
Bye.
That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, your host. We're produced by Phil Circus, Dylan Brogan, and me. Molly Stentz is our executive producer. Our theme music is by Carl Christensen. Haley Sperling is our newsletter editor. And this week, you also saw Molly Stentz in as a guest editor. Remember, you can always get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to Madison Minutes. And hey, if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with an Amazon delivery driver? See you back here Monday morning with more news from around the city.